Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm recreating this dress from Boohoo. I found this leopard print material and I bought 2 yards of this. I'm not sure what this material is called, but it doesn't have any kind of stretch to it. I also brought this elastic thread. What I should have done was brought it in black, but I only had white, so hopefully you won't be able to see it. So I've cut out the 3 pieces that I need for the top half, the front, the back and the sheared piece that goes in the middle. Also made sure that I've left enough material for the length of the skirt. So for the front piece, I folded it in half, and this measures 15 by 12 inches. It's around about size 10. 15 is the length that I need, and 12 is according to the bust size. If your bust size is bigger or smaller, you can cut the width any size you need. And for the length, I've kept a couple of inches extra. It's always safe to keep a couple of inches extra while cutting. This is the back piece, and this measures 10.5 by 17 inches, which is a bit more than we need. And this is the piece that's going to be in between the bodice and the skirt, which is going to be sheared. And by sheared I mean it's going to have lines of elastic thread going across it. And this piece of material is measured at 5.5 inches in length, and the width of the material is 60 inches. To make the front shape of the dress, I'm taking an old tank top and going to trace this pattern onto the fabric. So because my fabric is folded in half, I'm taking the tank top, folding it in half and then tracing this shape, so the neckline and the armhole. Even though my tank top is stretchy, I'm not taking any other measurements, I'm just tracing the neckline and the armhole. And once I've done that, then I can go ahead and mark the bust size, which I've kept 10.5 inches with seam allowance. And then from the top, taking the 8-inch point is my waistline, and I'm marking 9 inches for the waistline. So measuring from the top again, I'm marking at 9 inches. And this is where I'm going to make my cut. So after you've cut out the front, this is how it should look. And now it's time to cut the back. It's just a straight little piece, so I'm going to take my front bodice and place it onto the material, making sure it's straight. And then I'm just going to cut across the waistline and the side seam line. And this is where the sheared part of the fabric is going to go, just underneath the top bodice, in between the bodice and the skirt. And now we're going to cut the skirt. So I folded it in half and then folding it over again. The length of the skirt I'm going to keep is 49 inches. This includes all the seam allowances from the top and the bottom hemline. So I'll mark at 49 inches and cut that straight. Here I'm taking the top front bodice just to give you an idea of the shape that you're going to need for the side. So I'm folding it in half and placing it at the top of the skirt. My waist equals 9 inches, but you've got to remember that in between these two there's going to be a sheared material. So when it comes to the skirt top, we're going to measure our hip measurements, which I'm going to keep at 10 inches. And then from there I'll just cut straight down to the end corner. And lastly, the last thing we're going to cut is the bias strips to cover the neckline, the armholes and the shoulder straps. So I'm just going to cut some strips which are less than about 1 inch in width, and I'm going to cut about 5. So once all our cutting is done, we're at the sewing machine with the front and the back bodice. I'm starting off with the back bodice, and on the wider side I'm going to make 2 folds and make a straight seam. So not forgetting, we're going to do that seam on the wider side of the back bodice. And now I'm going to work on the front bodice, and I'm going to take the bias binding strips that we cut, and I'm going to cover the neckline and the armholes with these bias bindings. I'm going to start with the neckline, and I'm going to keep both right sides together and make a 1/2 inch seam across the neckline. So unfortunately this part of the binding video wasn't recorded, so what I'll do is I will do a detailed video on bias binding and how to put it on the neck and armhole in a separate video, and upload that very soon. So at this point you've got the front and the back bodice done, and now we're going to move on to the sheared part of the fabric. So I'm taking the bottom bobbin of the sewing machine, and we're going to wrap the elastic thread around the bobbin manually. You have to make sure you're not stretching the thread too much and not loosening it too much either. So once you get hold of the thread, just start winding it into the bobbin. And once you've filled the bobbin in with the thread, we're just going to put it as normal through the slot. If you can't get the thread into the slot, you can just slightly loosen the screw . After you've had a good practice with the thread and the elastic, I'm taking the piece that's 60 inches wide and 5.5 inches length, and I'm going to leave 1/2 inch from each side of this material. So it's going to be attached to the bodice and to the skirt. So I'm going to leave 1/2 inch from each side, and then I'm going to start making my straight seams from one end to the other and shear that material. So this is how it all looks, the shearing, or you could call it smocking. And like I said, you can see a little bit of the white elastic through the seams, so I do suggest that you use black elastic. So all in all, I think I made about 8 lines of thread and elastic, and then now I'm just going to trim 1/2 inch from the bottom and then join it to the bodice and the skirt. So I'm folding the sheared piece in half, and I'm just going to cut it straight down the middle. Luckily it didn't affect any of the seams and the thread didn't come out. So yeah, I just cut it down the middle, so I've got half for the front bodice and half for the back bodice. So I'm taking the front bodice and the one part of the sheared material, placing both right sides together, and I'm going to make a straight seam across the waistline. And what I did was I took both ends and spread out the elasticated part, just so that the pleats are evenly spread throughout the waistline. This is what it looks like, and we're going to do the exact same for the back as well. So here I'm now taking one panel of the skirt, and I'm taking the narrow part of the skirt, which is the waist, and attaching it to one of the bodice pieces. So keeping the right sides together. And I'm going to do the same as I did when I attached the sheared part to the top bodice. I'm going to spread out the pleats evenly by taking both ends of the fabric and putting them together. I'm now taking both the front and the back panel, putting right sides together, and we're just going to do the side seams. So taking about an inch seam allowance, we're going to start from the armhole right to the end of the skirt to the hemline and make a straight seam. So the next step to do is to make the shoulder straps and to hem the hemline. For the straps, we take the bias binding and we fold it in half, and then we make a seam. Depends on how wide you want your strap or how narrow you want it. The more you leave from the fold, the wider it will get. I have done a video on strap making and I will link that in the description box below. So I've turned the straps inside out and ironed them flat and measured them. I needed about 14 inches. So I've got two straps at 14 inches. And I'm going to start off by joining it to the back of the front bodice. So there's different ways you can join the strap on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just do it the quick way and place it on the triangle and then fold it back so you don't see any raw edges on either side of the dress. And now we're going to make sure that the strap is straight, and we're going to find where we want the strap to finish at the back, and we're going to do the exact same. So I'm going to place right sides together and then turn the strap up so you can't see any unfinished seams and hems. So both the straps are on, and now all that's left to do before the big reveal it's the hemline at the bottom. So we're just going to do a double fold and sew all the way around. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and you like the outcome of this dress. And if you did, please like, share and subscribe to my channel for more tutorials like this. Thank you so much for watching.